She declared that Greeks were hidden in the wooden horse. No one gave her words a thought. It was her fate always to know the disaster that was coming and be unable to avert it. When the Greeks sacked the city, she was in Athena's temple, clinging to her image, under the goddess's protection. The Greeks found her there, and they dared to lay violent hands on her. Ajax, not the great Ajax, of course, who was dead, but a lesser chieftain of the same name, tore her from the altar and dragged her out of the sanctuary. Not one Greek protested against the sacrilege. Athena's wrath was deep. She went to Poseidon and laid her wrongs before him. "Help me to vengeance," she said. "Give the Greeks a bitter homecoming. Stir up your waters with wild whirlwinds when they sail. Let dead men choke the bays and line the shores and reefs." Poseidon agreed. Troy was a heap of ashes by now. He could afford to lay aside his anger against the Trojans. In the fearful tempest which struck the Greeks after they left for Greece, Agamemnon came near to losing all his ships. Menelaus was blown to Egypt, and the arch-sinner, sacrilegious Ajax, was drowned. At the height of the storm, his boat was shattered and sank, but he succeeded in swimming to shore. He would have been saved if, in his mad folly, he had not cried out that he was one that the sea could not drown. Such arrogance always aroused the anger of the gods. Poseidon broke off the jagged bit of rock to which he was clinging, fell, and the waves swept him away to his death. Odysseus did not lose his life, but if he did not suffer as much as some of the Greeks, he suffered longer than them all. He wandered for 10 years before he saw his home. When he reached it, the little son he had left there was grown to manhood. 20 years had passed since Odysseus sailed for Troy. On Ithaca, the island where his home was, things had gone from bad to worse. Everyone by now took it for granted that he was dead, except Penelope, his wife, and his son Telemachus. They almost despaired, but not quite. All the people assumed that Penelope was a widow and could and should marry again. From the islands round about, and of course from Ithaca, men came swarming to Odysseus's house to woo his wife. She would have none of them. The hope that her husband would return was faint, but it never died. Moreover, she detested every one of them, and so did Telemachus, and with good reason. Were rude, greedy, overbearing men who spent their days sitting in the great hall of the house, devouring Odysseus's store of provisions, slaughtering his cattle, his sheep, his swine, drinking his wine, burning his wood, giving orders to his servants. They would never leave, they declared, until Penelope consented to marry one of them. Telemachus they treated with amused contempt, as if he were a mere boy and quite beneath their notice. It was an intolerable state of things to both mother and son. And yet, they were helpless. Only 2, and one of them a woman, against a great company. Penelope had at first hoped to tire them out. She told them that she could not marry until she had woven a very fine and exquisitely wrought shroud for Odysseus's father, the aged Laertes,